Hey everybody, welcome to the sky this month for November of 2025, and I'm sure you're sick of hearing the word incorporated, but this is the first sky this month of the newly incorporated HAA. And if you're sick of hearing my voice, well, that just sucks for you because yet again I am in the position of observing director for the next year, and so I will continue on with my same format given the virtual Sky This Month presentation pre-recorded with our members gallery and a night sky tour using Stellarium. So you're going to have to bear with me here because like I said, it's me again. You're stuck with me until at least next June. And unfortunately, if you're tired of seeing astro photos after Doug's talk, well, I have a bunch more for you right here. So let's get into it. It is now November and winter has already reared its ugly head. We've already gotten snow, we've already gotten the freezing cold, and this time of year, of course, the nights are getting longer and the sun is setting earlier and earlier and earlier before 5 p.m. now. And so that's not the best for most other hobbies and for most other aspects of life in general. But for us astronomers, it's pretty good because we have plenty of opportunity for night sky viewing now with those long, long nights that start earlier and earlier as we move towards the winter solstice in December. So, getting into our members gallery, we will start off first with this shot from our EH editor Bob Christmas. This is of the Elephant Trunk Nebula IC 1396A in Cepheus. And Bob took this shot on October 14th in the equatorial mode using his C-Star S50 smart scope. It's 270 10-second exposures for 45 minutes of total integration time, post-processed in GIMP. And this is a beautiful shot. Just look at all those colors in there and look at the dust clouds and the dust lanes. And right there in the center, of course, that's why it's called the Elephant's Trunk Nebula, because it really does look like an elephant's trunk. And it's looking just beautiful image from Bob. I love the reds and the greens and the blues and all the different colors in the stars. That is a beautiful shot, much like this next one from Bob as well. The Helix Nebula, which is NGC 7293. This, of course, is a planetary nebula in Aquarius. I believe it was September I talked about this one. And it's still visible right now, although it's best in September and October. It's a very large planetary nebula, and Bob captured it here with the C-Star again without a filter on October 15th of this year. 90 10-second exposures for 15 minutes total integration time. And that honestly is pretty much what the Helix looks like in a very, very, very large scope. Of course, you don't get the colors, but you do get that wispy nebulosity and that nice big ring structure around it and all of the different stars that you can see here over the top, overlaid in front of the nebula. And again, keep in mind, Bob took this with a 50 millimeter scope, his C-Star, so in order to see something like that, you'll need visually a large scope, like a 10 or 12 incher. But he does a great job here of pretty well capturing what you can see with the Helix. And that is a beautiful shot. I love those colors. Love those reds and greens. So thank you, Bob. Next up, we have a few images from Paula Owen. These, of course, are of Comet C2025 A6 Lemon. I assume Paula took these at Bimbrook. They were taken with her C-Star S30 on October 16th. On the left, we have a 2-minute exposure, and on the right, a 5-minute exposure. And these are really cool shots. Look at that right there. Of course, the Comet Lemon was nice and bright for a few weeks there last month, and you can see the tail of the comet here and the bright nucleus. Over on the left, I assume this would be a satellite shooting across here, right through the base or the tail of the comet. Great images from Paula of Comet Lemon. And as well on the same night, of course, we had a second comet, 2025 R2 Swan. Paula also took these with her C-Star the same night, a 19-minute exposure on the left and a 1-minute exposure on the right. It just goes to show how bright those comets were, that 1 and 2-minute exposures captured so much detail in them. And these are beautiful images from Paula. Thank you for submitting those. And if anybody else has any images that they took of the comets, feel free to send them along to me. Observing at amateurastronomy.org. I'd love to see them. Now moving on to a bunch of shots from Ken Leadham. Ken sent me so many images, and unfortunately I'm going to have to save some more until December because he just sent so many. But this is a great, great shot that he took here of the Veil Nebula in Cygnus. Of course, the supernova remnant in 2 parts, right down here and right down here, with a little bit of filament in the middle. And Ken took this with his Dwarf 3 scope on June 28th using the Dwarf's Astro UHC filter. He said the filter was a mistake and he should have used a dual band filter so there weren't as many stars popping out, almost oversaturating the image. But quite frankly, I like that image like that. Just look at all those stars in the Milky Way there. I mean, look at how many there are, and look at all the different colors in them and the different brightness and the different apparent sizes of them. Great shot, and you can still see the filaments here in the supernova remnant and the blues and the reds again. I think that's a great shot, and that's a really cool contrast with all those Milky Way stars on top of the nebula there. Another one here from Ken is the Tadpole Nebula. The Tadpole Nebula is a obscure emission nebula, IC 410. And he took this on March 27th of this year with his Celestron Origin, 20 minutes of exposure. And that is a great image here. Ken says it looks like a mini Rosette Nebula, which it definitely does. And he says that this little starry area in the middle, this open cluster, is separately cataloged as NGC 1893. This is an Auriga. And it's, of course, Mission Nebula right there with the dust blotting out in front of it. And nice deep reds here, and nice different parts of the nebula you can see all around it here. Great shot from Ken, as always. Yet another one here that he submitted is IC1284. IC1284 is an emission nebula in Sagittarius with two little reflection nebulas down here on the right side. And Ken took this on June 18th with his Celestron Origin again. 30 minutes of exposure with no filter. And I think that's another great shot there too. Just look at those dust lanes in the Milky Way here in Sagittarius. And look at all the stars in the background there. Quite a contrast between all the stars and then all the dust. And then a reflection nebula and then a emission nebula. Everything that you can see in Sagittarius and everything that we have there towards the galactic core. Ken captured that very well right here with this shot. And one more from Ken is this one that he took of the Big Lick Galaxy Group. The Big Lick Galaxy Group is cataloged as HCG68, 5 galaxies in the group. The brighter of the interacting pair in the center here is NGC 5353. Down here at the bottom we have a nice spiral galaxy here, NGC 5371. And they are all interacting together here. In this image I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 galaxies, I believe. And this is a nice wide field shot that Ken has taken here with the stars around it too and this sort of empty dark sky around the galaxy group. Fantastic shot, and that is just so cool, especially seeing those beautiful spiral arms down here, like a mini whirlpool galaxy that we have. Moving on to Chris Chabon. Chris submitted this image of, what is that? Titan's Shadow. Chris put the label right here, but right there you have Titan's Shadow above what is Saturn, of course. Nearly edge on right here. He took this through his Celestron Nexstar 6SE and SV305 planetary camera. Now it's not too rare to see the shadow of Titan go across the face of Saturn. There are plenty of websites and applications online you can actually use to pinpoint exactly when to see it. And you can also see Saturn or Titan itself transit across Saturn. And Chris captured this very nicely. Another image from Chris is the lunar landing site. This is a great mosaic of the moon. Unfortunately, the high resolution doesn't really show up as well on PowerPoint and recording as it did in the image that he sent me. Excuse me. But this is a full image of the moon here that Chris took with his 6SE. And then with a 2X Barlow, he got higher res images of all the different lunar seas and lunar highlands and the different areas where Apollo missions and pre-Apollo landers and unmanned recent landers have all landed on the moon, and marked them off here and stacked them together to create this really cool mosaic. Awesome shot and awesome idea for that, Chris. Really appreciate you sending that in. And finally, the background image is of the Lagoon Nebula, once again taken by Ken Leadham. And Ken took this shot with his Vespera Pro scope on June 15th of this year and 44 minutes of exposure time. And of course, Lagoon Nebula M8 is an emission nebula in Sagittarius. It's one of the biggest and one of the brightest in the night sky. And it's a favorite object for telescopic observers and a favorite astrophotographer's target as well, because just look at that. And Ken captured it so wonderfully here. Look at everything that's going on here, all the stars, all the dust lanes, all the emission nebula, everything that's happening here. It's just so much all in one image, and that's what makes the lagoon so great. And awesome shot from Ken. Appreciate everyone sending in these pics as always. And like I said, anything you want me to share, send it over to observing@amateurastronomy.org, and I will be happy to give them, or happy to present them during my monthly talks. So now let's move on to Stellarium and give a virtual night sky presentation. As I said, I'm going to cover between now and our next meeting on December 12th. So I have Stellarium set here for Friday, November 28th, about halfway between now and then. And let's start off, as we always do, with the naked eye sky. So over here in the west, we have the summer constellations still lingering above the horizon, although by the middle of December they will set earlier and earlier and disappear until late in the night in the early spring. But nonetheless, you still have Cygnus and Lyra and Aquila down here in a summer triangle. But again, by midnight at this time of the year too, they have fully set. Moving up towards zenith, we have a nice big empty space right above us here, right at zenith, but it's bracketed by Pegasus over here, Cassiopeia, Cepheus, and let me turn on those constellation labels. Pegasus, Cassiopeia, Cepheus, Lacerta down here, Perseus up over here. Lots going on in this area of the sky around that middle empty space here. You have Andromeda Galaxy, M31, almost directly overhead. You have the star clusters in Cassiopeia right there as well. And a lot happening right above you with the fall faint Milky Way passing directly overhead. Moving down towards the east, we have our winter constellations starting to rise now. Of course, the early winter constellations, Auriga and Taurus, are nice and high by this point. And right behind them is Gemini and Orion and Monoceros and Canis Major. Coming up in the winter triangle will be fully risen by midnight or so. So this is, of course, the best time of the year between now and the new year to observe a lot of the winter objects in the famous winter Milky Way. Over here in the southeast, the south and the southwest, I'll get to this area of the sky in just a little bit when I cover deep sky objects, but we have our water constellations, Eridanus the river, Cetus the whale, Pisces the fish, Aquarius the water bearer, and Pisces austrinus the southern fish. This big, almost empty-ish area of the sky, not many people look at, not many people focus on, but a lot going on over there. Plenty to see, and we'll get back to that in a second. Over in the northeast, north, and northwest, we have Draco wrapping here around Ursa Minor, and we have Ursa Major and the Big Dipper at its lowest point of the year, just hugging the northern horizon, and it is going to swing up over the spring until it is nice and high towards the first half of next year. So, from here, we will get into our solar system objects. So let's start off with the moon. Right there is the moon on the 28th. But on the 17th, we'll backtrack a couple days here. Let me get the moon focus right there and bring up date and time. On the 17th in the early morning, so let's go ahead to around 6 a.m. on the 17th. And right there you can see the moon in conjunction with Spica, the brightest star in Virgo. Oh, pardon me, Stellarium froze there. There we go. Spica just a couple degrees away, not even, about a degree and a half away from the moon right there in the early morning on the 17th. On the 18th in the morning, just before the sun rises, we have the moon joined by Venus hugging very close to the southeastern horizon there. You're getting a nice true horizon to see that, but that's a nice cool little conjunction there. On the 29th, the moon is near Saturn, a few degrees away in the evening sky, but we'll skip ahead back towards the early night time on December 3rd. So let's go to December 3rd, right here, around 11, say 10:30 p.m. And where is the moon? It is going to be right up here. Right there. December 3rd, right above the Pleiades. Now, I don't know why Stellarium doesn't have a great image for M45, the Pleiades, considering it's one of the brightest and most famous objects in the sky. I can't seem to get it to generate or load, but it will not look like this in a telescope or binoculars because, of course, we all know these stars here in M45 are nice and bright, and there's a lot of them. And the moon on the 3rd between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. passes directly in front of them from Hamilton. You can actually follow the moon as it tracks its way across those stars, the Seven Sisters, in M45. It's always great to see an occultation like that, so mark December 3rd down on your calendar. Again, from about 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., and you can follow it right across the star cluster. And then on December 10th, back in the early morning sky, let's go there on the 10th. And where am I here? Moon, 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 where are you? Disappeared on me. There we go. In the early morning sky on the 10th, another close conjunction between Regulus, the brightest star in Leo, and the moon. And around 1 a.m. it should actually be closer, so let's follow that back. There we go. Less than half a degree, maybe a quarter degree away. We don't quite get an occultation, but pretty darn close. So there you go on December 10th, just after midnight. Another nice close conjunction there. Great binocular, great telescopic, and great astrophotography target. So mark those dates on your calendar, and let's move on to the solar system. So we'll get back to the 28th here. I'll go a little bit earlier. 24th and 23rd, and we'll start off with Mercury. Let's go to just before sunrise. Down here we have Venus and Mercury right close behind it. So Mercury is a very fleeting early morning object from the 23rd on. And again, this is on the 24th, and you can see just how low it is to the horizon there. You skip ahead just about half an hour and the sun's already up. But as we move into December, Mercury rises earlier and earlier and lingers higher and higher until it reaches its greatest elongation on the 7th. So first week of December, great opportunity to see the inner planet there just before sunrise. Of course, we just saw Venus back there, but let's head back a little bit. There is Venus right there, the two of them nice and close together on the 25th. And Venus is still an early morning object, but it sinks lower and lower, and then by the time Mercury reaches its greatest elongation, Venus has turned back towards the sun and will be too close to the sun to view. So between now and the end of the month, you can still catch Venus, but in December, it begins to move too close to the sun. So get some views of Venus and its phases while you still can. Looks like a full Venus almost this time of year. Or gibbous Venus, I guess. Mars is unfortunately too close to the sun all of November and almost all of December. It's not readily available, so we will skip over to the king of planets, Jupiter. And let's see what Stellarium does here. Whoop! There we go. So this is on the 25th in early morning sky. Let's go back middle of the month, and let's go back around midnight. And as you can see, Jupiter is nice and high for most of the night, most of this month. He's up there in Gemini and rises around, rises just around 8 o'clock, and it's up for most of the night until sunrise. So plenty of viewing opportunity for Jupiter yet again this month. And the same goes for Saturn. If we want to get the ringed planet, we'll skip back here to around 9 p.m. And there you go. There you have Saturn in Aquarius right there. And Saturn sets around midnight in the middle of the... sets around 2 a.m. Around the next couple weeks, and towards the end of the month in December sets around midnight, so it is sinking lower and lower and setting earlier and earlier, but still for the first half of the night. And again, we'll have a good 8 hours almost of, sorry, good 6, 7 hours almost of darkness until midnight anyway, so plenty of opportunity to view Saturn. And as you saw in Chris's image earlier, the rings are almost edge on. Not quite, but about as close as they will get. So there you have it with its plenty of different moons orbiting around the planet there. Uranus is in Taurus all month long, visible for most of the night, and Saturn follows Neptune follows very close behind Saturn. There is Neptune up there, so if you do want to catch it, right behind Saturn. Now for meteor showers in the next month, we have the Leonids, which peak on the 17th, and on the 18th, which is beginning of the week, next week. And you'll have, for the most part, a moonless sky to catch Leonids. They're a very erratic meteor shower. Usually you can expect 10 to 20 meteors per hour. I've actually already seen quite a few Leonids shooting off, and they've been very bright, with trails lingering for about 5-6 seconds afterwards. So who knows? It's known for being unpredictable and erratic. Could be a good one this year, but you'll see at least 10 to 20 Leonids per hour. And on the 13th and 14th of December, just after our next meeting, is the peak of the Gemini meteor shower, but keep an eye out from the beginning of the month because you will see 20 and then 30 and then 40 and then 50 meteors per hour from a dark sky until it reaches its peak of about 80 to 100. So keep an eye out for those two meteor showers which are coming up. And then let's get into the deep sky very quickly here. So in my EH article, I talked about this area of the night sky that you're looking at right now towards the southwest, south, and southeast. And I covered all of these water constellations up here in September, I believe it was. But let's look right down here, hugging close to the southern horizon. This is an area of the night sky that is really often overlooked because, again, it is hard to see. It is in that swampy horizon muck down here. But it is towards the south, which means that if you're looking over Lake Erie from a dark spot on a nice clear night with steady seeing and nice transparency, a lot of these deep sky objects that you have along the southern horizon there are going to be visible. They might not be the most visible, they might not be the best views, but this is more about a challenge than actual great views of these objects. But there's plenty to see around here in Sculptor and Pisces Austrinus, Fornax, and Eridanus. And these are some bragging right objects if you can pick these out from here in Ontario. Plenty of galaxies and plenty of globulars and plenty of different things to see, planetary nebulas as well. For example, we have NGC 300 here, magnitude 8, the southern pinwheel. I've seen this one before. Certainly doesn't look like that from here in Ontario, but you can see it. It's only at an altitude of 9 degrees right now, very, very close to the horizon. But there are several galaxies that are the same. NGC 55, the String of Pearls galaxy right here, magnitude 7.87. This is only at an altitude of, 7 degrees above the horizon. Over here in Fornax, there's several different galaxies and galaxy groups. Let me see if I can find it. Let me search them here. Fornax A is one of them right down there. These are better towards midnight in the middle of the month when they rise up a little bit. But there you go. You have Fornax A and Fornax B, an interacting galaxy group at an altitude of 10 degrees again. And the Fornax cluster over here, another magnitude 9 and 10 cluster of galaxies. Down here we have NGC 1365, the Great Barred Spiral Galaxy. And all of these are visible from Ontario with a clear southern horizon through an 8 or 10 inch scope. And again, they're very, very tough objects to see, not easy to pick out, but you can get them, and it certainly presents a challenge for our more experienced observers. Of course, there's also quite a few globulars in this area right down here. NGC 1851 in Columba, just hugging the horizon right down there. If you want an easier one, you can go a little further up in Lepus the Hare over here and get M79. That one's an easy one to grab. And then in Eridanus too, there are also a few objects of note. There's the Eridanus A group right here, which is NGC 1407. This is another galaxy cluster that we have here of elliptical galaxies. And then below it we have the Robin's Egg Nebula right here, magnitude 9.4. And this one's a really, really cool planetary nebula. I mean, you can tell why it's called the Robin's Egg. Look at that blue color and look at that shape. It does indeed look like a robin's egg. And so I have a few more that I've picked out and put in the EH article, but that's just a brief rundown of the area. So again, this month, challenge yourself. Go down to Lake Erie if you can. Get a nice dark sky, get a nice clear, steady night where you don't have all of this nonsense going on at the southern horizon here like you'd see from Hamilton or from Niagara. And see what you can get in this area of the sky that is really close to the horizon, but there's still plenty to get. Another one over here that I missed, sorry, the Sculptor Galaxy, the Silver Coin Galaxy. That one's fairly easy to get, magnitude 8, NGC 288 over here, globular cluster. Despite the fact that it might appear empty, you might never think about it, you might never have decided to go looking over here, there is a lot to see all the way from the west over to the southeast. So that is your deep sky for this month. They're all challenge objects this month. Let me know what you can get. Let me know what you see. And that is your sky this month for November of 2025. And I will see you all next month in December. Thank you all and happy observing.